gentlemen, and welcome you again for the Friday Fundamentals that Bombay Management Association, one of the largest management association of India, conducts every Friday. And I'm honored and privileged to host today's session. And I'm really thankful to our president, Mr. Sharma, for giving me this opportunity. And on behalf of Bombay Management Association, I welcome today's guest speaker, Mr. Neel Ramesh. Neel Ramesh is the business consultant, a coach, and corporate trainer with a special focus on MSMEs. He's an MSME consultant and member of RCCI and promoter of ABLE, which is Association of Business Leaders and Entrepreneurs in Navi Mumbai. He is lifetime member of Indian Society for Training and Development. He's a postgraduate in Science and Business Management, a business analyst, psychotherapist, and organizational competency development facilitator. He's a consultant, mentor, and counselor too. He has got more than 2 decades of working experience into corporates and manufacturing industry. And he has handled the senior and middle level management positions covering production and supply chain management and human resource management also. And he has worked with organizations with the senior position people in companies like VIP Industries Limited, Hero Honda Motors, Gabriel India Kinetic Engineering Limited, Technova Imaging Systems Limited. He facilitates various workshops and learning interventions that are engaging and informative in their own ways and means. So I'm really, really excited to listen to Mr. Neel Ramesh, who's going to take us to different paradigm and different dimensions of the business in today's time. So over to Ramesh.
Thank you. Thank you, Anshulji, for the generous introduction. And thank you, each one of you. In fact, especially Rajesh Sharma ji. It's a privilege and pleasure, and all other dignitaries and office bearers of BMA. And of course, special thanks to Lakshmi for taking that extra care and seeing that things are properly coordinated and everything. Thank you so much once again, and good evening to one and all. It's really a pleasure and privilege to be on this platform and be able to share my experience or something. It's not about that I know and I'm going to tell, because you're all esteemed, experienced people who are there on the platform. So it's just a sharing, and this is something that I really cherish, that BMA gives an opportunity to share. And it's only through sharing that we get to know each other, we enrich ourselves and know much more. So that's the whole aspect of it. Not taking much time, we'll just go on to what we are supposed to talk about today. Yeah, the topic for today, if I may just put on share the screen. Is my screen fully visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see that, Neil. We can see the screen.
Fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so as the subject for discussion, I would still say it's a discussion, goes language of the changing economic environment. In fact, I took some time to coin this word also, the sentence. Basically, how should I word it? So maybe you have a question in your mind as to why did I use the word language? You know, something that I also tried to put in this. We would all agree that when we are communicating, it's through a language. Yeah. And language today is an inseparable part of our life. It's inseparable part of our human society. And human civilization as such has been possible only, through language. It is through language only that, humanity has come out right from as back as Stone Age to what we so-called call it as a developed state of science, art, technology, and it's come a long way. So why I thought language per se has so much significance is because it relates, it relates to the various sounds, and it sounds to differences in meaning when we use different languages. And the unique thing about language is something that is ever changing. Okay, it is dynamic. So I wanted to just correlate it with the whole economic environment by using this word language, because language being dynamic and changing, that's how I pursue, or we all pursue, this economic environment. So let's look at what's happening really today. It's just a sharing of my thoughts, and I would encourage towards the end of whatever presentation that I have, I would like you all to give in your thoughts and ideas, which will of course bring more value and more enrichment to the whole aspect of this topic. So talking about this economic environment, I think we're all familiar. What does it mean talking about an economic environment? Because it is something that we are all part of, each one in one's own way, be it a professional, a business person, or an entrepreneur, whatever you call it, an industrialist, whosoever it is, even in academics. We all are a framework of an economic environment, because as the word economy says, we all know it's something that we produce a product or service for the society, for the benefit, for the use of the society. And that's the whole gamut of it, the whole production, the whole giving of the service. How do you distribute it? How do you dissipate it? How do you give it out? And to also finally the consumption of it. That's what we are talking of economy. And let's see what's this environment that is taking us through. So let's understand this. I have picked up few of the statements that key leaders have said. The one that really brought my attention was none other than Azim Premji, the chairperson of Wipro. Now it's on the screen for us to just look at it. What did the chairperson of Wipro has to say in one of the annual general body meeting? This is what he said. He looks at the whole situation as volatile economic environment. Okay, although the clients are looking to spend in technology, and technology is becoming a major differentiator in all businesses. But although that is a fact, stating that digital is the central element which is driving the changes in the expectations and experience of consumers and business models, he adds this point that he strongly believes that this success will depend on the ability to redefine and align ourselves. And why is this need of redefining and aligning ourselves? Because what he says in the new global paradigm is it's disruptive. So the word disruptive is something that is very, very significant. So there are a lot of disruptive developments in the industry. So let's look at it. As he puts it, we'll see some more statements that are there, some more analysis, which I would like to share. So let's look at a survey report, which is quite revealing. What does it say? There is something that really bothers us is this aspect of inflation. The survey says that inflation is on the top of the list of this perceived economic hazards. So one could see the differences that are happening here, the geopolitical conflicts, and these remain at the top threat to the global economy. So what we see here is all these things which we can very well look and correlate. See, just 1 quarter after the geopolitical conflicts and the instability, of course, COVID is still fresh in our mind, the pandemic, the leading risk to economic growth and the basic concerns of inflation, which is really worrying everyone. Even we are going through, although there are statements made very strongly and efforts are being made to overcome this inflation. We could see in the newspapers off and on these things going up and down, but still there is an amount of what you call worry. There is an amount of concern and all the effects of this geopolitical issues on the country's economies. So this is what we see, this important aspect of inflation as a growing threat to economical, stability, economical environment, which continues, and it continues to disrupt and make things unstable. And these are the threats that is there in the domestic growth as well and global as well. So this is what we are trying to just get these points in place when I talk. Yes, Indian scenario also, we all know now, the G20, where India is going to be the leader when you're talking of 2023. Of course, currently it's Indonesia who's going to host it. But the Indian scenario also, if you see in the 2021, according to the reports, it says the strongest GDP rebound in G20 in 2021, but still the Indian economy is progressively losing momentum as inflationary expectations remain elevated due to rising global energy and food prices. Monetary policy normalizes and global conditions deteriorate. So this is what it is. And we know this aspect of real GDP, which is projected to grow by 6.9% in the fiscal year of corporate investment and facilitated by production-linked incentive schemes. Although inflation will decline gradually, but still it has its own repercussions. We also know the current account deficit, which will widen due to these aspects. So it's still something that is in the flux that we are talking about. And the global scenario, we all know it's there for everyone to know about it. And we do know that nearly a quarter of the world's population, more than 3/4 of those, are in extreme poverty, lived in countries and regions which are classified by this word, which is what we are going to hook on, that is fragile in 2020. Experts expect these numbers will only grow. Even in today's newspaper, if you see, the focus is where the Supreme Court has said, why not give reservations based on the economic criteria rather than something else? So we see this as an aspect because the economic below poverty line is something that is very, very bothering. So although the challenges posed by COVID-19 pandemic, the climate crisis, the proliferation of militant extremist groups, which we could see even in India and some places, and of course it's there in the globe, which is there, which is growing geopolitical competition, which is there. So these all attributes make it to a fragile state, which includes an inability, to control its territory, govern effectively, deliver public services, usually because of all these factors like violence, corruption, political oppression, and of course, unstable governments. Even we have experienced it in our own state. All this can fuel so many aspects, and even the neighboring countries, there is refugee migration, violence, corruption, all that is spilling over into other countries. So although we do have this positivity that developing world has made economic progress in the post-Cold War period, which was experienced, still violent conflict has escalated dramatically over the last decade, and it doesn't show signs of declining. We know what's happening around. We had Afghanistan, then now, of course, it's still going on with Russia. It's still going on, all these things. And today, the new questions are being asked about what this term fragility means. So fragility is something that's bothering each one of us, making us weak, fragile, breakable. One can't sustain because of so many things that's happening around. So let's look at this scenario. I've just picked up from one of the what you call study that has been made, an index which clearly shows, if you could see here, where one could see that most of the countries, including India, except for few of it like Australia and some other countries, Argentina and some others, if you see most of the African countries and are in the red, whereas even India and Russia and many more countries, of course, our neighboring countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all these countries, Afghanistan, they are all in the red or in the yellow. India is in the yellow, which means although it is not in the red, it is still risk at stake. It's a warning. So we could see this is the state from the peace point of view. So this is something where a country has minimum conflict. So this shows that how fragile we are. In what state are we living? It's so fragile. Apparently things look so good. Yes, we are developing. There is positivity. There is economic growth, thrust. Various aspects are there. But still, the way COVID shook us and took us out of the whole, what you call a stability point to it just shook across the world. Today, there are so many things that are happening around, which is making us vulnerable, making us fragile. And fragility is something that can just shatter things. It may apparently appear that things are good, but within things are cracking. So this is what we need to understand. This is again a fact that is put across that nearly a third of the world will live in fragile conditions by 2050. So it's there for all of us to just see on the screen what's going to happen. The global population living in fragile contexts, 2020 to 2050. So this shows what's going to be the state of affairs if it's the way it's going. So let's look at aspects beyond this economic chaos. So economic chaos is one thing, but let's see something beyond this coronavirus, which has already created a lot of chaos, be it health-wise, be it economy-wise, be it in so much it's caused disruption. But let's look beyond this, where we look at a global war economy. So let's look at this. What does it mean? Now, if we can just have a glance at what is just I have put across, that although coronavirus has disrupted global supply networks, it has spread panic throughout the world stock markets. The pandemic, yes, today we can look and say, yes, it will pass, or it is under the way and it has almost like crossing over. But of course, it has left back its very, very deep scars. It's not without that heavy toll. But in the larger picture, if you see, the fallout from the virus exposes the fragility of a global economy that never fully recovered from, if you could recollect way back 2008, the financial collapse that happened. I'm not going into detail, but we know that it's still there. You can always connect that. Economists do connect from there till what's happening now. So it has been really bothering, and it's on the brink of what you see of things getting in this state. So let's look at the global trend. I'm just actually what I'm trying to put across is bringing you to the context of what's the global scenario and where things are. Efforts, yes, are being put across, and India is really doing a good job, but still the trend, because India is not in isolation, it's part of the globe where it is impacted by so many things. So there are these four aspects which we need to really, keep in mind, or just see if it can stir some thought to it or give some aspect to the whole aspect. The first is crisis of global capitalism. What do you mean by that, global capitalism? If you see politically, this system, it faces a crisis of capitalist hegemony and state legitimacy. If you see, what does it mean is, if you see here, there is a two extreme. We all know this, the richest, say 1% of humanity controls more than half of the world's wealth, while the bottom 80% has to do with just 4.5%. So such is the inequality that still exists today. And these are politically explosive to the extent that the system simply cannot reverse them. And it's becoming more and more violent, because when you see, one can't contain these situations in terms of the people who are have-nots, especially. And the second one, what does it lead to is when this crisis, I mean, this gap widens and widens, the next thing that's happening is there is an imbalance, what we call is over accumulation. So here, as these inequalities escalates, what we look here is the system actually churns more and more, wealth that the mass of working people, if you see here, they cannot actually consume. As a result, what is happening is the global market cannot absorb the output of the global economy because they cannot consume it. They are not capable of it because of this situation. So there is an over accumulation at one side. And this refers to what? Basically, it refers to a situation where enormous amounts of what you say capital or profits are accumulated, yet these capital or profits cannot be reinvested profitably. And when hoarding or these things happen, although again, as I said, attempts are there to minimize that or to break that, but still it exists. And this things makes it stagnant. So that's what we see here. These are the things that are happening in reality, if you see. Then second, the third point, which we all know, is militarized accumulation. You see now what's happening. The whole thing on the, what you call, militarization that is happening in this society, what is there today. So many things, there is again an accumulation of this. The focus is on totally, what you call it as a global police state. Somewhere you see it's more dependent on the development and deployment of what? Systems of warfare, social control, repression. These are all this apart from what you call it as a political consideration. So the whole thing is, what's happening, if you see around, it's all about the wars that is being raged against so many things. There is a war against the drugs, war against terrorism, the undeclared wars, which is also there with against the immigrants, refugees, gangs, okay, war against the poor, racism, all these things, working class, these are all wars that are being raised. So there are so many boundaries and walls that are being created. Rather than bringing everyone under the common thing, there is still this part of being, uh, an internal war that's being raised. So everywhere there is that insecurity thing that's there. And the whole focus is on this. And last but not the least, the point here that we are talking about is privatization of war and repression. This also we have seen as something that is quite significant, if you see. Because here again, if you see each country like United States and various other countries, they are predominantly the world power. There is military expansion in different countries, and that has taken through, the whole scenario has changed here. Like Chinese government, for example, it has announced that it was setting out to develop its own military industrial complex modeled after the United States. So that is what is happening. The official state military outlays in 2015 and after that, it represent almost 3% of the gross world product. So GDP, almost 3% is going towards this aspect. So you see the military spending, leave aside the internal, but we are talking about these external aspects. So these accumulation, that is military accumulation, is leading to all this. And then if you see here, the privatization of war and repression, what's happening around, okay? All the US-led war in Afghanistan, things that have happened, the various other aspects which is there, which is happening. So all these things are something that I'm just putting it across so that we know what's the thing that's happening. I think I'm sure you're all able to connect with it. So let's see, that's the trend. So is it not something that is really bothering us? So these are things that really needs to be given a thought. What's happening in the economic environment? So let's look at the environment today, what's really happening. Okay. So let's look at this in an increasingly chaotic world. The level of economic and social uncertainty is on the rise. I think we'll all will agree that today it's a chaotic world and the level of economic and social uncertainty is on the rise. We are witnessing so many uncertainties. Okay. To give few examples, yes, we have so many things, the Cold War, the global warming, climatic catastrophes, and above all, we are stuck in the middle of the biggest health crisis as a fallout of this coronavirus that puts our lives really on a standby. Okay. So this is something that we need to understand the seriousness of the whole thing. And as creatures of humans struggle with these uncertainties and changes, and our brains are programmed to recognize these patterns and well-distributed structures. So let's see how it is, because we cannot remain aloof of this. We need to be part of the whole thing. So let's see, and we are definitely affected by the whole aspect of this scenario that is really overwhelming on us. So let's look at few of the aspects. I wanted to bring here a very interesting aspect to you all today. Could you see the picture there on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, on one side. Yes.
So yeah. So
A butterfly.
Butterfly.
And lots
How many of
yeah,
you? Sorry.
and lots of disturbance, on Earth happening.
Okay. Am I audible? But
Yeah, you are
Yeah,
audible.
you're audible.
okay,
You're audible.
fine. Okay, fine. So can you see that butterfly? Are you familiar with this term, the butterfly effect? Yeah. This is another interesting point that I would like to put across to each one of us. Are we aware about it? Can someone just put something in the chat box? This is a very interesting concept which I just picked up. I thought it makes a lot of sense to us when we talk of a butterfly effect. A butterfly, we all know, is very fragile, a very small thing. But why is it called as a butterfly effect? Let's just have a look at it, what I wanted to share with you all. Okay. This is what it is. Let's understand this butterfly effect. The butterfly effect is the idea that small things can have a non-linear impact on a complex system. The concept is imagined with a butterfly flapping its wings and causing a typhoon. Now, yeah, if you look it straight, it doesn't make sense. A butterfly cannot cause a typhoon. Just a flapping of the wings of butterfly cannot cause a typhoon. But then it's something that can get initiated and lead to something where this butterfly effect is very important. If you see the effect in business, which I've just tried to put across, marketplaces are in essence a chaotic systems that are influenced by tiny changes. If you see small changes happening, you will never know when it can cascade or snowball into something much bigger and beyond expectation. It may start with small changes, but those small changes are significant enough to cause big ripples. So if you see here, this makes it difficult to predict the future, as the successes and failures of businesses can appear random. We may think, oh, it's just happening here. The way I will just put it forward, even when we just date back a couple of years back when this COVID started, it started in China, in Wuhan. Okay, at that time it was within China, a ripple that started there. Okay, whereas in India, we never even imagined what it could happen. It's a small thing that started there, but the way it just spread and made a catastrophe of the whole thing. It upset the whole globe, health-wise, economy-wise, everything. So can you see this butterfly effect? It started in a small place, a place where like Wuhan, and let me confess that I have not even heard of this state or this place, Wuhan, before COVID. So this makes it difficult to predict, as the successes and failures of businesses can appear random. So we may think, oh, it's to do with that particular thing or a particular area where something has gone wrong or something has, erupted or something. But periods of economic growth and decline sprout from nowhere. That's the reality of it. And this is something really, if you give a thought to it, and this is the result of exponential impact of the subtle stimuli that happens, the economic equivalent of the butterfly effect. I hope you all are just getting the aspect what I'm trying to share.
Yes, sure.
Yes, yes.
So this is something that I thought I could share with you, because this is a very interesting thing, but one could see how can this butterfly effect be very significant. And even in business, specifically I've said, but it could affect anywhere. Now, the whole situation is, given the scenario of all these economic environment that we just spoke about, how should we behave in such a world? We need to exist. We are there. So where these old patterns, whatever was there, the way we were doing things, as during COVID, they said, okay, COVID set up a new normal. We all said things are going to be different. Digitalization, the new normal with respect to education, with respect to working, with respect to health, so many things. So wherein what happened was all the old patterns just crumbled, right? So in a world like that, where this is now going to be something that can come anytime, and it comes without saying, without asking. So where these old patterns just seem to crumble, whereas new systems still need to be established, because the pace at which things are changing and the environment is in a flux. Before even you could stabilize something, there is still some change that has already happened. So that change has to be so dynamic, the agility has to be so high. So given that scenario, how can one manage to say healthy? And here I am putting this aspect of mentally healthy despite all this chaos, because this mental health or this part is something that is close to me, because I happen to be a business psychologist, where I consider every business, if you see, from a psychological perspective, because it's all basically in our mind, because it's the people who take decisions. All the things that are happening in the environment is not caused just by it. It's because of people who are taking decisions based on whatever is the criteria or the background or their intention or whatever it is. It could be anything, but it has a psychological perspective. And hence, what I put forward this term of business psychology is that your business is all about your mindset. Think about it. It is the success aspect here is it's 80% is psychology and only 20% is mechanics. I don't know how many of you all agree, but this is what something that I'm very much convinced. So to the point, let me put forth some facts. We may think, yes, we are so seasoned, experienced, we know everything, we are running a business very nice. For ages it's been running, we could do and get away with anything. But the fact is, how fragile are we is demonstrated with this thing, that even the mighty can fall. Few examples, I've just splashed it on the screen. You could know all these are big timers who were there. Maybe it's glamorous they were, or they were doing the pioneers, they were very popular, all these things. They were part of the big bubble, but suddenly things just went off and vanished, right? I don't need to explain all this. I think it's on the screen. We all agree. All these, and there are many more. I just picked up few. Are you all with me?
Yes, yes, yes.
So you should agree that all these are from different, what you call, segments where I've just picked up: automobile, communication, photography.
Yes.
So different aspects, and we all know about the sad state of Coffee Day, what happened to its owner and CEO. So how fragile, even though things were so apparently so good, but still it's so fragile. What happened? So even the mighty can fall, and there are many more if you look around. So what is it that we are looking at is the whole understanding of these chaotic patterns. We need to understand this chaotic patterns. If you look at here, this is something we all know, right? For quite some time, this is doing word around. It's the buzzword or the word which is used everywhere in colleges, in the management colleges, in businesses, and everywhere where you talk, you put forth this word VUCA, right? We say, yes, it's a VUCA world. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. But somewhere, if you just sit back and thought, even if we are aware about this, which explains disruptions, but still, if you look a bit deeper, there is something that we still see it's incomplete. It doesn't lead you to the next step as to why things are volatile and what happens afterwards. What does it leave us? It leaves us in which state? This uncertainty which is there, what is it? Does it result into a state which is complex? What happens further? And then when you call it ambiguous, what happens further? So this is where I would like to introduce you all to another term, which I think you might have come across definitely, is something we will see what it is. Okay. So this is something which we have all come to an understanding that in this chaotic world, what made sense yesterday may not make so much sense today. So in a corporate culture, things have drastically changed. It has become increasingly essential, to face this new challenge. And this new challenge, something that is there in the coming. So wherein digitalization now is something that we all have taken it, okay, yes, it's given. The faster, the better. And we have adapted also during these times when we say that we have developed new skill sets, tools, all this to keep in pace with the term called volatility. But still, today, we still seem to be vulnerable. So if you see being volatile, what has it resulted into? So let's see something. So a new understanding in Connect is what I want to put across to each of you. Maybe you all have already come across, but this is something I wanted to put across. How many of you have come across this term? Yeah. Thank you. So let's understand this term in a different manner. Yeah. So this new thought model to cope up with the changing world is where this Bani concept enters the stage. Just to give you some academic information, yes, this was put forth by an author and futurist, Chamais Cascio. He proposed this model in his recent article, which he called it as Bani. Now let's see an interesting thing, how we can connect both. This is something that I just spent some time to understand. And let's see how it comes. Okay. We all know Bani for what it is, right? Just to refresh us. Yes, B stands for brittle, A stands for anxious, N stands for nonlinear, and I stands for incomprehensible. We'll just put it at par with VUCA, and let's see what happens here. Let's understand this new framework, okay? Where I'm trying to correlate the situation with the consequence. Now, the first one, if you see volatile, a situation which is volatile, what has it left us with? What state? It has made us brittle. Something that is volatile, things that can change at any point of time. You never know when what will happen, has shaken us, that it has really made us as weak that apparently we may put up a strong face, a stable face in front of us. We may say, yes, we are doing well. Now, if you just look, even I'm not trying to criticize anything or anyone, even of our government, it is putting up a best foot forward and bringing in so much things. But at the back of the thing, if you see, there is still that case that we are still vulnerable. So it leaves us with a state of being brittle. Although we have seen no one in this volatile state can say, yes, I am strong, I can face anything at any time. So there is this internal weakness which makes you fragile, which makes you brittle. At any point of time, we can crumble down. So this is something that I would like to just bring forth as a connect. The next, if you take off uncertainty, now what does it happen? When things are uncertain, you don't know what's going to happen. What it's going to leave you in a state of fear, in a state of anxiety. So if you recognize that this is the state that you are, see, the important thing is not to be just uncertain about something, but the situation that each one is finding himself or herself is a state of anxiety, a state of fear. And that's the starting state where you will start to think or start to see what can I do to come out of it? How can I handle it? First is that acceptance state that yes, it's causing me worry. This is something which is very, very important that I'm trying to just put it across to each of y'all. So we need to understand this aspect, which is quite important. The third one, if you look at it, it's what we are talking of is complexity. Now, what is complexity? Very similar. Complex means you're not able to find a direction. You're not able to know what's happening because things are so enmeshed. Things are so, what do you call, conflicting. Things are so mixed up. Things are so complex to the point that you don't know where to start, where to end. Touching one could disrupt something else. Doing this could disrupt something else. So what it is leading to an aspect where you're facing is there is no linearity. Things are no longer straight. So it gives you to, or it brings you to an understanding that this complex situation brings you to a place where you acknowledge that yes, things are not straight. You cannot just approach something with a one-point solution or just one aspect. There could be many flavors to it. So there is a complexity to the whole thing that we are talking about. So this is something where you could make a connect with this new thing where it is leading us. So we can adapt to different situations, think and act accordingly, and depending upon our, what do you call it, as adaptability. Okay. So in order to function in a non-linear manner, a world which is so non-linear, the results, something which just cannot be calculated. So there is no simple cause and effect we could see here. There could be many causes and even the effect could be many. So here, the best strategy, if we could see here, is to adapt. If we can adapt, while we have some rigid plans, we make plans. That's why we all know today it's no longer a long plan that we make. No longer are those long-term plans. Today, plans are very, very focused, short-term, agile, and plans are dynamic. So strategies keep on changing with respect to the environmental changes that happens. So today it's something that we have to depend on our adaptability in order to function in a non-linear manner. So here the best strategy is these rigid plans. If you say the plans that we make rigid, they tend to cling to only one outcome. It's not that saying planning is not important, but the whole paradigm of planning has changed. So planning something which is there in a conventional way, it is sticking to a particular outcome. Whereas if you bring in flexibility, it allows you to adapt. No matter what the outcome will be, it will finally look like we can bring out a new situation which can be best and can be used. So these are something. And of course, ambiguity, when we are talking about ambiguity, what does it mean? Ambiguity means it's not clear. There is no transparency there. So how can we bring from ambiguity to, the state, what it is left is incomprehensible. What do you mean by incomprehensible? We are not able to understand. We are going to analyze it. We are not able to comprehend it. So in that state of flux, what can really benefit is, I'll just like to put forward this point, a state of ambiguity which makes situations incomprehensible. Things can happen better only if we try to become more transparent. So transparent is one of the effective remedies against this aspect of incomprehensibility. So this behavior can be changed if we make things a bit more meaningful, whether it is with respect to mental health, whether it is respect to your business or wherever you acted. So that's where you look, basically, how can you, start with this. People are still grappling to find solutions. These terms are there. These terms by itself are not solutions, but the terms can at least become a starting point where we can start thinking. And it is for each one of us. So let me put forward something to you all, the possible way to tackle it as we move forward. So this is something that we see. How can we bring in? I think it's there very clear for us. This is something that I would just like to share with you all, the possible way. Things which are brittle, how do you really sustain it? By bringing in resilience. Yeah, we all know the aspect of resilience. That's how we can stay put and become strong to face these situations. The next is, when you're anxious, you need to get the facts right, get the situation understood properly. You need to move fast. Okay, for that we need to be fully aware about things happening. You cannot be caught napping. You cannot saying, I did not know about it. So here, anxiousness is a state of mind, but how do you get out of it is when you get clarity, when you are really attentive to the changing environment, you're sensitive to the changing environment. So that brings us to the point of attention and agility. Something that is non-linear, not straight, it's all complex. How do? You need to take it in the stride, adapt it, do it one by one, take it, close it, take it, close it. So we need to adapt to the changing situations rather than fighting against it. We should know that there are certain things which doesn't go with the aspect of fighting against it. You need to adapt to these situations. And the last, but not the least, what I'm talking about is incomprehensibility, as I just shared with you all, is to become more and more transparent. Transparency is the answer. The more people are involved, more people are engaged, take it right from government to anything. And I think that's what's the attempt that the current government or where we are going out is bringing in, that transparency, openness in the system through automation, through system in place, through digitalization. Things are becoming more transparent, more open, more connected. We can voice it. Your presence is there, your opinion, values, things are being done. It's a long way, but I think this is where we can go about it. So these declines can be what you call avoided. I'm just putting these thoughts to your mind. Why, why the mighty fall? We, again, as I said, it's all of the mind. It's a psychological base. When we are on the top, when we are at a success thing, or when things are going good, what happens? These are the things that happens. Because we are not having all these aspects with us, what happens is, here when you say, this is what happens. There is an outrageous arrogance. You feel that you are on the top. Okay, then you feel I can do anything that I want. So then you tend to neglect people, neglect things, neglect the simple things, neglect the environment. You say, I can get away with anything. Just think about the things that businesses which collapsed had. You can get away with things because there is an arrogance. The next is blind quest for growth. It's only to become big and great, to make more money, to make profit, come what may. So it's a blind quest for growth. The third is Very important, I'll share with you, we need to not to ignore the dark shades, whereas people only bask in the glory. They want to see what's gone right, but not what's gone wrong. So while looking at the colorful ones, we also need to look at the darker side, the shades. And the fourth and the fifth, we say, in an attempt to move fast or to get bigger, better, brighter, we make desperate moves, which means wrong decisions, arrogant decisions, blind decisions, which can be very catastrophic. And of course, it leads finally to a no return situation, because when you take those decisions, you reach at a point of no return. We have seen examples galore and things of what's happening around. So this is something very interesting that I wanted to put forth, is looking at the dark shades, which also help. Just have a glance at it. I think it talks much about what is the dark thing that I am trying to just share. We only focus on success. It's equally important that we also look at the roadmap of decline, because in the decline is the learning. In the decline is where we know where we should not tread or what we should not be doing. Many a times we tend to not learn from those because we don't even look at it. The brightness makes us blind. So this will caution us and help us to apply the brakes in time before it is too late. So also study shows the entrepreneurial decline is mostly self-inflicted, and the recovery is also again within our own control. So rather than looking out, the story begins with us. So I just want to leave with these thoughts finally, and that's the last of it that I want to share with these thoughts which are there, which I found it quite inspiring and meaningful. So thank you so much for patient listening. And that's what I just wanted to share with all of you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Ramesh. And now let us open up it for the Q&A. And there is one question in the chat box.
Yeah.
Asked by Mr. Ramesh Singhal.
Yeah.
So he has a question. Could you tell something about effect of politics on business or economic environment?
Thanks for that question. I think the question is a very obvious thing. Yes, political aspect, effect of politics. Now, what do you call it as politics? Okay, because our whole environment, if you talk of an external environment, the politics is part of it. And what do you mean by politics is, if we are looking at government, if you are looking at the global scenario, the whole thing is something that we call politics. Definitely politics has a great impact, because we cannot be isolated in a social fabrics. The external, when you talk about the micro environment and the macro environment, the macro environments are very, very important when we look around the world, because even if we say India or any business, you are impacted by various things that are happening. And when you talk politics, what does it mean really? Politics per se is pure, okay, when you talk, but it becomes contaminated or, what you call manipulated when people bring in. Finally, it's all about the mind. So what is it that is looked to be served at? So here is where the whole thing changes. So politics definitely has a very, very significant impact. But if you can be something specific, then I could have given you something more. But it's needless to say politics does impact. And we have seen around how it can impact positively and negatively. Certain steps taken can have its multi ripple effect. It can have a negative impact. Yes, positive impacts are also there where it can happen. So we have seen so many things that have happened even during the post-COVID period, during COVID, how things have been. And let me tell you, India is way far better than other countries where politically, I'm given to understand US is going through a very difficult political state and a very difficult economic state. Leave aside the other countries. So I hope I'm just bringing a very basic point, unless you have something more to ask on that.
I think,
And I
Anshul,
would request anyone to contribute. Okay, it's not that I know all, please. So
Anshul,
people can add more. That will only enrich the whole thing.
Anshul, we can ask Mr. Ramesh Singhal if he got the answer, if he has anything else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
Mr. Ramesh, are you there?
You can unmute and ask.
Yeah, please unmute yourself and you can interact directly with the speaker.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Ajit says that.
Can I stop the sharing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that makes it better.
I think there is a hand raised by Mr. S. Kumar.
S. Kumar, yeah.
Yeah, please.
Mr.
Yes,
S.
please.
Kumar, you can unmute yourself and you can.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. These days, we have noticed in changing economic cycles, the Sensex market has become very volatile. Then money market. So even the prices of metal, polymer, cement, they are also very volatile. So will this happen to continue now in future as well, or it will little stabilize and be more formatted like what it used to be 3 years back, 5 years back? Last 3-4 years I have seen it's highly volatile, like up and down swings, pricing of any product you say, whether it is shares, whether it is any commodity, anything. Yeah. Yes, sir. Come over.
Yeah. See, I don't know whether you listen to these talks on the shared by share experts. They are experts in the field. Still, they cannot predict. So what they say also is possibility of these things. So every day when you open the whole thing at the beginning of the share markets, it's
Prediction.
all just like a Pandora box opening. On what note does it open and how does it move? And definitely these things are in a flux. And let me also tell you, I don't know whether you have heard sometime, of course, unfortunately, he's no longer Mr. Junjunwala. Whenever a question is asked to him, he never gives a straight answer. The best, he's supposed to be one of the top notch, the richest as far as share market is concerned. But if we ask him this question, the answer he will say is, do it wisely, be observant, okay? Because the market is such, and there are many factors which can cause these fluctuations. So something, if I say, yes, it will not do, it may be proven wrong. And again, when I told you about this butterfly effect, it's a ripple. A small thing can cause a change ripple where you will apparently find no reason why it's happening, which you would have seen, something happening somewhere, and then you will see some changes in the share market. So
may I say something over here? May I say something?
Yeah,
are you able to hear me?
Yes, Mr. Singhal, you can say.
Yeah.
Now, I joined a bit late, but anyway, when I started, Mr. Neel Ramesh was speaking about volatility affecting the business environment or the scenario of a fund. Now, first thing is, even the volatility to start with can be induced. That was, in fact, one of the first questions I said. There are players, including businessmen, as well as the government, as well as, because now the whole world is linked. We are a global economy. We are no more a village.
Absolutely, yes.
When we talk about, resilience, attention, agility, and non-linear environment and incomprehensibility. Why is it that the firm has to always adapt? There are always other ways open. In mathematical modeling, I have seen, there are quadratic models also. There are more than higher degree, higher than quadratic models also. And if you have seen environment, weather forecasting. It is not linear, but when based the forecasting in business forecasting or economic forecasting, the most important thing is forecasting. The future, what is going to happen maybe after 5 minutes, after a day, after 3 years. So we have to accept the environment as it is, but it is possible for us not to simply accept it lying down. We can always do something about it. It's possible. Of course, regarding politics affecting the business environment, I mean, it's an everyday phenomenon. I mean, I'm not sorry to say that the richest person in India be necessarily due to, I mean, I should not use the word,
Zoom meeting आली है.
it may not necessarily be due to the ethical business practices, the effect of politics on business. The second richest in the world. I stop with.
Okay, thanks for your views.
Any other question anybody has? Sanshul, maybe you can take over.
Neel sir, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
See, we were talking about the chaotic scenario affecting the business. And you have quoted the example of Nokia, no? Nokia phones. But I believe that they're doing well, although not in the smartphone market. They're doing well in the back end, developing technologies in 5G, then various communication devices, competing with Huawei. And I think they are pushing slowly Huawei to number 2. So actually they are doing well. And that's one part. Another part is updating technological platforms at the right time, every time, can find us at the top front. Even if whatever be the chaotic scenario or whatever, don't you think that, I mean, updating, many failures have happened due to inability or lethargy in updating the technology to the latest at the right time? Do you agree with me in that?
Yeah, I agree. Of course.
Yeah.
Digitalization and the IT thing is very important. And of course, Nokia, as you said, yes, that's a scenario, but the whole cycle they went through, they were the pioneers as far as, when you talk about mobile, and the whole thing of their whole logo was so much connecting people.
That's right.
So suddenly they got disconnected, okay? And other players,
Exactly.
they were the real market leaders.
Yeah.
Everyone had
Actually,
a Nokia in the hand.
They
So
did
yes,
not.
they went through that struggle, and then of course they are trying to scale up or enter into a different year. So these are all the examples how one could fall.
And actually,
Lessons learned.
Actually, the Nokia CEO very famously said that we did not do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a very famous statement, which means that we did not innovate as fast as others.
Yes.
Absolutely.
There was a status quo which they wanted to maintain, and they lost out.
That's right.
It's a different story that the butterfly effect, which Mr. Neel was talking about. That when there's a chaos, then you reinvent yourself. So that Nokia is doing now. But the fact of the matter is that at one point of time they did lose.
Yes.
It is out of complacency that they lost.
Yes.
Or which he said in his presentation about arrogance.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kodak also had the same story.
Kodak
went
also had
almost totally
I fully agree.
Liquidation state.
I fully agree.
But Nokia survived due to diversification into parallel technologies and parallel platforms. I think they were there in the back end. They were even at the time of leadership in smartphones. They were doing a lot of things at the back end. Developing hardware modules for the communications domain. So they were able to survive because of a parallel, work or business.
Yeah,
But
They
that's
always,
the part two of the story.
Actually, word doesn't know that.
yeah,
Word
yeah,
only
That's
exactly.
knows
why.
that Nokia
Yes,
lost out, and the CEO
Yeah,
said that we did not do anything wrong.
yeah.
That's only
Right,
what
right,
the
right,
word
right,
knows.
right, right,
Yeah,
right. But they are still floating.
yeah, I
They are
know.
still
yeah,
floating,
Yeah.
and they are in the back end doing well,
So
isn't it?
that also proves another point that when you are in a very stressful situation, you think harder and you try to innovate and you try to survive. That is the
Exactly,
survival of the fittest kind of thing. That the
yeah.
exactly.
survival
The
instinct is
Darwin's
say
working
theory,
on
something
sir,
that.
over
is
here.
coming true again.
Yes, that is
Darwin's theory,
Mhm.
survival of the fittest, is coming with a different dimension. It's
yes.
coming back again.
May I
Survival of
say
Actually,
the
something?
survival instinct is actually working. Yes, sir. Single sab.
Yeah. You, I mean, while I was a student, my teacher said, taught a simple concept, uh, life, life cycle or something. I mean, you have to take a rebirth in marketing. When you launch a product after every 2 3 years, there is a curve, product life cycle. So whenever there is a decline, you have to launch a new product so that it competes, on the basis of a changing environment. The
Absolutely.
environment is never static. The word static does not exist in the world. Everything changes every second. So you have to remain, you have to keep your eyes, ears, and all your gangs of shoes open.
Absolutely.
So true. So true. Appreciable. So if there is any other question, Anshul?
Also,
Yes, sir.
India has recently raised the bar by becoming fifth largest economy in the world.
Yes. Yes.
So,
It's the
and they say that,
latest thing. They've crossed UK.
yeah. So they say that it will further that way in that ratio or that graph will further improve. So by maybe 2030 we can see India to become second because China they say anyway is going to topple US in next few
The
years.
way China is putting it here, that it's they
Sir.
and China, if you see today, Putin and Xi said they are willing to work as great powers. Okay, where Prime Minister has also gone for the what do you call the this one? What is that? The Samarkand SCO summit where he has gone.
Okay. Yuga.
So as you say, yeah, it's something which is very
कैसा रहा बीच में?
optimistic.
चांगली
But
होती
then,
है.
as we say, agility is the word. See, India is definitely capable of doing it, but it's not something again that we see the realistic thing. It's not straightforward. The situation is that it is something that you cannot have a straight path. Yes, India has to be making multiple things, various efforts, various directions. See, if you see the reality also within India, there are two glaring things. One is illiteracy and one is the poverty. These two are something which is, even worse than any epidemic. So these two things actually is coming in the way. So unless and until this is tackled, and tackling these things are not easy. So I will not go or talk anything that is there. I don't know what's the agenda and how are we planning to do this. So globally, yes, we are putting it, but still, if you see at the base level, these are some things which are really chronic, and these are really bothering us on various aspects. And India, of course, as we say, it's a very complex thing. Being a social democracy, we have all the challenges, but still, it's by and far doing much better. So all these things are there. Of course, India is poised 2025. We are talking of 3 trillion and all that. So let's see.
I will just add to it, sir. The positive thing, if I have to look at, India has the best eligible population in the world. That is the advantage which the India has. And today, around 56 CEOs in the world corporations are Indians. So educated population is also increasing. So on the positive side, if I say that there is lot which India can do, and yet India is doing and contributing to the world growth, I will say. You know, if you see world across, everywhere Indians are rising. See, there can be debates and there can be arguments for everything, but however, the India, it is an somebody. I was just reading a statement from the chief of Morgan Stanley. He said it is not the decade of India, it is the century of India.
Honorable members, let me say one thing. We are totally ignorant of the effect of the deteriorating environment of the earth. And the environment will ultimately affect not only the business, but the very existence of mankind in the world. And the businesses, the governments are really talking a lot about it. When it comes to action, which is actually affecting, look at the effect of global warming in Europe. Look at its effect in, in India also, in Bangalore, the floods and all which came. I mean, look at, nobody, we do look at it. We hear about it. We read about it. But when it comes to something, no nation is doing any real impact except lip talking, lip service.
Yeah. So I think if there are some more questions, we can take. Otherwise, Anshul, we can find it out. If there is some other question,
I think Mr. S. Kumar is trying to say something.
No, same thing. I just wanted to elaborate. So this rise of our rank recently on 5th number is because of our numbers have shown progress, or because the other the UK had the numbers of UK had fallen and there we got the advantage to rise up. It can be other way, like we are stable.
I don't know if
others are falling down, so we got that advantage.
Mr. Ramesh would like to comment on this.
Yes, sir. If you have something, you can talk.
I'm saying these are. Let me tell you. Let us not come to the conclusion on this forum, because these are very complex numbers.
Yeah.
And we, as at this level, we are not aware of many factors.
Absolutely.
We take everything on the face of it and we go with it.
Maybe we can have a new. Maybe we have a new session, because today it's already getting too late.
No, I think those are very, very complex things, and it is difficult for us to comment on that. It is inappropriate for us to comment on that.
Yeah. And we come to know only what is brought to us, through the news, to the press, people. It's not the 360-degree thing. And as we said, there are many factors to it. So it's difficult to pinpoint why things. And these are again what I said. Yes, it can go up and down also. Something can strike us and things can again be going haywire. The point is, yes, we need to be steadfast there and keep the, as sir rightly said, eyes, ears, nose open. Politically, in all respects, we need to keep that. And agility is very important. But it's good. Let's take it in the stride. Yes, the fact is that, yes, we are moving up. So that is a very optimistic thing that we can look forward.
And I have a different thought altogether here. See, when storm has come and others have fallen and we are standing, so that means definitely we are very strong and moving ahead with that strength to head towards 2025 as the world most powerful economy. So we are keeping fingers crossed, and definitely the session that was taken by you, Mr. Ramesh, Neel, it is amazing, and it was very insightful and thoughtful also. And upon this, the new language that you have set today for the changing economic world, and you take us through the butterfly effect and the journey from VUCA to Bani to RAP. So it is really, really interesting and very amazing session that we had, and definitely today we are not the same that we were before joining the session, because we had so many takeaways from the session. And with one request to all the present members here, see, if you are members of BMA, so we look forward for more cooperation and contribution. And if you are not, so please take the membership, because we are open for the membership of Bombay Management Association. And I'll request each one of us present here in the session to, switch on their video so that we can click, picture.
With a smile.
With a smile, of course.
Yeah.
Smile. So a Colgate smile, I would say. So I'm just, yeah, Ramesh sir, please remove your, yeah. So yeah, it's fine.
Done.
I'll request, yeah, other person also to just click the picture so that we'll have a, better capture of the session today. Lakshmi, can you do me a favor? Can you take the screenshot?
I've taken.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, everyone. And Rajesh sir.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Ramesh, for spending time and for a wonderful session. I think it's very informative and it will be educative for everyone. And thank you, Anshul, for being a very, very nice anchor. The way you have conducted is awesome.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Anshulji. Thank you, Anshulji, for bringing a nice speaker, which is very awe-inspiring, actually.
Thank you so
A
much.
lot of takeaways, especially the butterfly effect.
Maybe,
Yeah, we can correlate it to so many things.
One another, even in our speech. I mean, it's not due to one body's effort alone. It is a group which gives momentum to the other. Like,
Sure.
I mean,
Got
nature's
the
harmony.
points. Got the point.
Thank you so much for everybody's contribution and participation.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.